орків, як траву, косять орків, як траву. Москалів ми кинем в піч, москалів ми кинем в піч. Welcome to Ukrainian beach. Welcome to...
The parading of a captured vehicle, which cost almost $5 million to build, represents a significant symbolic victory for Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, and will undoubtedly trigger alarm bells in Moscow. Separately, it has emerged Ukraine is using other types of abandoned Russian tanks to turn the tables on Putin by recapturing more territory. The T90M was found abandoned with one of the tracks missing but otherwise undamaged. Ukrainian troops have previously destroyed another of the battle tanks in the conflict which followed Russia's invasion on February 24, but this marks the first time one has actually been seized. The success should enable Kyiv, and NATO allies, to reverse-engineer the equipment to gain valuable insights into the technology which underpins it. At the beginning of the war, Russia deployed Soviet-era tanks such as the T-72 and T-80, built more than 4 decades ago. However, they were susceptible to NATO-supplied anti-tank missiles and armed drones, with hundreds destroyed. As a result, a small number of T-90 MiS were brought in. Sometimes referred as PRORYV-3, the T-90M was unveiled 5 years ago, according to military-today.com, entering service 2 years later. It uses a 2A46M 125mm smoothbore tank gun which is capable of firing armor-piercing fin-stabilized discarding sabot, high-explosive anti-tank, and high-explosive fragmentation ammunition, and 9M119M reflex anti-tank guided missiles. It also transpires that large numbers of T-72 tanks were dumped as Russian soldiers fled advancing Ukrainian troops sweeping through the Kharkiv Oblast. U.S. think tank The Institute for the Study of War said. A Russian source additionally noted that Ukrainian troops are strengthening their grouping in Kharkiv Oblast using captured Russian T-72 tanks, suggesting that the initial panic of the counter-offensive led Russian troops to abandon higher-quality equipment in working order, rather than the more damaged equipment left behind by Russian forces retreating from Kyiv in April, further indicating the severity of the Russian rout. Ukrainian troops are pressing east and are planning to force the Kremlin's forces occupying the rest of the Donbass region back to Russia. Ukraine's armed forces regained control of the village of Bilohorivka and were preparing to retake all of Luhansk province from Russian occupiers, Provincial Governor Serhiy Gaidai said. The village is just 6 miles west of Lysychansk city, which fell to the Russians after weeks of grinding battles in July. Luhansk Governor Serhiy Gaidai: "There will be fighting for every centimeter. The enemy is preparing their defense. So we will not simply march in. More heavy weaponry is on its way, with Slovenia this week promising 28 tanks and Germany pledging 4 additional self-propelled howitzers." Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba has urged Western nations to supply more weapons so his government can press ahead with its counter-offensive against Russian forces. And President Volodymyr Zelenskyy is expected to today urge UN nations to accelerate weapons and aid deliveries. Meanwhile, General James Hecker, the top U.S. Air Force commander for Europe, said on Monday Ukraine has shot down 55 Russian planes during the war, precluding Moscow from achieving air superiority. However, Ukraine's small air force lacks the capability to seize control either, creating a situation in which the two sides are embroiled in a prolonged casualty-producing struggle on the ground. He added, "That's what's playing out in Ukraine right now. A lot of casualties because there's not air superiority on either side of the house." The US has also provided Ukraine with HARM missiles that home in on enemy radar, which the Ukrainians are firing from their MiG-29 and Su-27 Soviet-era planes. At least 80% of Kyiv's air force is intact, according to Mr. Hecker, who said that he speaks with the head of Ukraine's air force every 2 weeks. Russian naval commanders have moved submarines away from Crimea after Ukrainian attacks deep into the peninsula, British defense chiefs said on Tuesday. They argued that the Russian president's annexation of Crimea in 2014 was partly to ensure a base there for his Black Sea Fleet, but this aim had now been weakened. A spokesman said, "The command of Russia's Black Sea Fleet has almost certainly relocated its Kilo-class submarines from their home port of Sevastopol in Crimea to Novorossiysk in Krasnodar Krai, southern Russia. This is highly likely due to the recent change in the local security threat level in the face of increased Ukrainian long-range strike capability." In the last 2 months, the fleet headquarters and its main naval aviation airfield have been attacked. Guaranteeing the Black Sea Fleet's Crimea basing was likely one of Russian President Vladimir Putin's motivations for annexing the peninsula in 2014. Base security has now been directly undermined by Russia's continued aggression against Ukraine. Thank you very much for watching. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button so you can be alerted to our next video. We'll see you again soon on Warzone.